And other than her and my partner now, I've told my dad and my uncle, and that was only a month ago. I haven't talked to anybody about it.
You think you saw Bigfoot?
I know I did.
Robert, any questions for Jeff? No, I see what happened. All right, we lost Robert. All right, well, listen, Jeff. Okay. Thank you. I can't thank you enough for coming on the air. Very brave of you to come on the air. Thank you so much.
Art, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Good night. And I'm going to have to get Robert back. All right, so there you have it. You have two police officers corroborating each other's stories who do not think but know they saw Bigfoot. Robert Morgan is an expert on all of this. He'll be back shortly. All right, we are going to now try and get Robert Morgan back on the line again. I have no idea what happened. Sometimes those things do occur. Right in the middle of an interview, you just get knocked off. And I don't know how that can happen, because actually we've got a system that prevents that locks a guest in. Calling. Okay. Let's see if we get through.
Hello?
Robert.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I have no idea what occurred. I take it, hopefully, when you realized you were disconnected, you raced to your radio.
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Well, you missed, you missed Jeff. I brought him on, and he verified every single thing that his partner said. At the very end of the interview, I asked Jeff if he had any doubt that he had seen Bigfoot, and he said, absolutely no doubt whatsoever.
Wonderful.
So there are two police officers corroborating each other's reports from Oklahoma. What do you know about Oklahoma and Bigfoot? Is that an area where it's seen?
Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, I attended the FAA Academy there in Oklahoma City. In fact, my daughter was born there in Oklahoma City, so I spent quite a bit of time, and I had a horse, and I was able to get out quite a bit in the distances. And there's no question that Bigfoot, especially, you look down towards the Ouachita Mountains, which goes down toward Arkansas. And I was in the Navy with a Pawnee and Kiowa combination, and I went over to the reservations, and they had no question in their minds that the Bigfoot existed there, have for centuries. So there's no question. These gentlemen, from what I heard on the first interview, the gentleman is very sincere. I think he's saying something quite accurate.
Well, it is interesting that two police officers are willing to come forward on a subject of this sort for the reasons that you laid down a little while ago with reference to Ohio. But I guess, departments differ wildly. And in some of them, I guess you're allowed to say what you saw.
Yeah, well, remember that UFO sighting where those officers chased that UFO almost over to the Pennsylvania line?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we're going to repeat that show. So many people have requested it. We're going to repeat that around just around Christmas.
Yeah, and I think some of them, didn't they lose their jobs, I believe?
Some did, yes.
Yeah, so the times are changing, thank God. Times are changing.
But you've still got to think really hard before you report. When you and I were last speaking before the interviews, you were talking about some tracks. You remember?
Yes.
You were talking about some tracks, so pick up on that very quickly.
You're talking about out in Trout Lake, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, we had tracked a short distance, but none of us could believe that we were that fortunate, or that my program was that. We just could not believe it. So we went back to the truck and went on with our trek. And I think it was the second night in. We were quite a ways up. We had stopped the truck, and we were now on snowshoes and hauling a sled behind us. And we were getting definitely into the wilderness, and there were no tracks around us. It was just us. And we had camped next to a stream that was starting to flow. It was starting to break up. And in the middle of the night, we heard this snuffling, snorting sound. It sounded like a horse trying to sniff the air.
Right.
And each one of us looked at the other, and we were awakened. And I said, "You go check it out." And I said, "No, you go. It was your idea." So none of us checked it out. And the next morning we went up over the top of this little ridge, and there was nothing there. There was just a small snowbank, and there was nothing there but this stream. So naturally, we thought we heard this. Well, collectively, the three of us must have been dreaming. A few miles further up, we found where someone with large feet, barefoot, had come out of that mountain stream, came up onto the road, turned around twice, walked back down into the stream, and continued going downstream. We had some unfortunate accident while we were up there. We got into a whiteout, and the boots we were testing for a major manufacturer, we won't mention his name, froze my feet, and they were supposed to be waterproof. They weren't. Anyway, we finally had to trek out, and when we did get out, we found out that on the other end of that stream, going downstream into the White Salmon River, there had been indeed sightings. And about this time, they had had a sighting near Bonneville on the river, the Columbia River. So we pursued that. Of course, I was limping by this time on frozen feet. We got down there, and this is where I ran into Conrad Lundy, who was commissioner of the Skamania County, and I ran into the gentleman who owned the Skamania County Pioneer, Roy Kraft. And their hunters were everywhere. Everyone was there with their rifles, their shotguns, everything. I asked him what in the hell was going on, and he told me. And I could tell he was a local. I didn't know he was the county commissioner. And he said, I suppose you're here to kill it too. And I said, absolutely not. And I went off on him. Mm-hmm. And being, of course, a very shy individual that I am. And I said, he said, well, it's not against the law. I said, well, it sure as hell should be. He said, well, I'm the county commissioner. I said, well, don't stand there. Do something. Somebody's going to get shot up here, and it's going to be more than the Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah.
So he took me down and introduced me to a gentleman by the name of Roy Kraft, and I wish you had met him. All right, this guy was the quintessential editor to a small newspaper. He had the cigarette ash that was longer than the cigarette. He had the celluloid, everything.
You sound like the Roy Schneider of Jaws, Remember Roy Schneider out there?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody's going to get killed, and all those rednecks piling into the boats and going out there, and sure enough.
Bingo, exactly. Well, Roy sponsored the ordinance, became the first law passed in America. And it was with me jumping up and down on Conrad Lundy, and Roy sponsored it, and became the first ordinance that was passed in America. What was interesting about Roy Kraft is after I got to know him, I said, what are you doing in Stevenson, Washington? Turns out this fellow had been a PR agent, and one of his, he said, one of his clients had been murdered in Hollywood. His client was Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, my.
Yes, he was the press agent for Marilyn Monroe, and when she was murdered, he had had enough. He said he couldn't. And he continually said she was. He didn't say she died. He said he didn't say she was overdosed. He maintained she was murdered, and he wanted nothing further to do with it. So this is an interesting thing about Bigfoot, I've run into more wonderfully interesting people, and he was one of them. But that's how that first law started. And then, of course, there's that pinball effect.
Are you really sure about this? In other words... we've talked about this before. There are many who say that one Bigfoot should be killed. One should be killed so that we can autopsy it, so we can learn about it, so that we can understand what we're sharing this planet with. We can understand about what these creatures are and all the rest of it. I mean, so much knowledge that could come from one body. How do you argue against that?
Well, it's intellectually, I began exactly that same way. That's exactly how I felt in the very beginning. But there was something about seeing these people out there, my gun's bigger than yours, etc. I saw no glory in that.
Yeah.
And the more I came to know the Bigfoot people, the more I realized, on the average, of course, they're just like us. There's good, there's bad, there's some that have had some rotten experiences with the little hairless people. And then when I got to know the American Indians, and I really dug into my own past. I'm Apache and German mix. And the more I dug into it, the more I realized how do we become so arrogant that in order for something to be protected, in order for something to be accepted, we have to kill it in order to dissect it? And isn't there something, the other half of this term, that we grandly put on ourselves?
Well, because that's linear science, and that's linear law. In other words, science is not prepared to believe such a thing even exists until they can personally examine it. Yes. And those who generally write laws are not prepared to write one to protect a creature that is, in their opinion, myth.
Mm-hmm. It's a conundrum. It's a very difficult thing. But what are we going to do if we do shoot one? Because we must convince ourselves it exists so that we can protect it. It's doing fine. It doesn't need protection. So what do we do then if we cut into it, cut it apart, and we discover that it is indeed genetically provable that this is our brother?
Well,
this is our ancestor.
Well, listen, if that happens, then they're going to quietly bury it. Trust me on this, and you're never going to see that body nor the report of the autopsy or anything else.
Exactly.
That would upset way too many apple carts.
And I wonder, Art, if that hasn't occurred. There was a skull found, not... Oh, yes, there's a skull was found.
Listen, tomorrow night here, we're going to have a Native American named Red Elk. He is a self-described half-breed Native American from the Blackfeet and Shoshone nations, member of the Hyuka Native American Lost Boys, which he is one of 12 inner Hyuka. Was one of the last 9 members of the Red Web Society who are working to bring understanding to Earth. He is the official keeper of the tunnels, official keeper of the pyramids, temporary caretaker of the Flying Dragon Drum, very sacred drum on the Hopi Nation, the altar carrier of the nations, and he is going to tell us about a world underground that is going to blow your mind. Red Elk tomorrow night on What's Below Our Feet. Now back to Robert Morgan. And Robert, I should tell the audience, and I want to make this very clear. I have a recording of Bigfoot, as you know, or is what is said to be Bigfoot. This recording I obtained from Linda Moulton Howe, who played it with the permission of those who made the recording. That is where I got the recording. You know something about the provenance of this recording, don't you?
I'm not sure. I'd have to hear it to know.
Oh, you want to hear it? Okay, here it is. That recording, Robert.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've heard that before. Mm-hmm. I'm not too awfully intrigued by it. The best recording that I recall is that I can endorse is by Ron Moorhead's group. They have a thing out, the Bigfoot recording. That particular recording, I've heard that multiple times, and it's nothing that I have ever heard, and I've heard them do all sorts of strange things. I have never heard anything like that.
Have you heard a scream? Do they make a screaming sound?
Oh, they make all sorts of sounds.
All right. I've got one other that purports to be Bigfoot. What about this one? Weird. Listen. What about that one?
That falls in the same category. I've never heard those things in myself. I've never heard them playing that eerily. I've never heard that echo chamber that they like to play that in. It sounds to me like someone's on the top of a church steeple trying to pretend. The recording or the sounds that I have heard of, they have never done anything like that.
What have you heard?
Well, I've had them come close by and actually imitating birds, and then change from one bird to another in mid sentence, I guess you might say, or mid sound.
Really?
And I've heard a lot of the articulations that are really well represented in Ron Moorhead's and Alan Berry's recording,
where they actually appear to speak.
Yes, where you can actually it's not just someone howling or something like that, because they have no reason to do that. You know, they don't just go out and pretend to be a werewolf. There's no meaning to those sounds at all. Well, the sounds that I have heard have all had meaning.
Yeah, I've also heard those, the ones you're talking about, mm-hmm. And they actually. Do you remember what the clearest was?
Yeah, there's something that sounded to me like "You're not welcome." They actually had vowels and.
It was kind of like that, kind of like that,
right,
yeah.
And which was tough to swallow at first, but the more I've listened to it, and more than that, even going on beyond that, because there's no sense in projecting what we would like to hear, but to realize that they're using vowels and so clearly. This means they have an articulated speech pattern. That means that they are above the chimpanzee, which is that and the orang are supposed to be our closest relatives, who cannot, because their tongues are not affixed the same as ours. They can't articulate. But these people do. I've heard it so many times, and they are one of the masters of imitation.
Do you or do you not believe there is anything paranormal about them? Now, they're said to appear and disappear. Sure enough, we don't have a body yet. Nobody's killed one. And there could be reasons for that that wouldn't be easily digestible. Do you buy into that or not?
No, not at the. I have seen nothing whatsoever that was. Well, if we have to define paranormal, it's a subjective term in the sense that if we lift above the normal, indeed they are. But do they go into other dimensions and play Puff the Magic Dragon?
That's right, yeah.
No,
you don't think
not
so?
At all. I appreciate the folks that are reaching for that, because I think they're looking for some other force outside of ourselves.
Sure.
And I understand that, and I'm not saying it's not there. Certainly there have to be other dimensions. We would be so small-minded if we tried to limit everything to that which we can.
No, that's all right. You think these are real creatures that
Yes.
have been here as long, or more likely longer than we have been?
Yes, I do. They're perfectly adapted,
and that we are from them.
I think so. I think our body is. Now we're getting into something a little bit more esoteric. Do they have the same essence that we call a soul? This I don't know. I just don't know. I wouldn't even pretend to know such a thing.
Oh, hell, I think cats have souls, so, They probably do. They probably have souls.
I would assume that they do, because, again, we would be so arrogant, wouldn't we, if we say, oh, we're special because of this and that and other thing.
Well, they protect they're very family-oriented, aren't they?
Very much so. And another thing that I've never heard of a dumb Bigfoot, that is a product of inbreeding. And this tells me that Mendelian genetics is holding up quite well, and this is one of their dangers.
Interesting. Sure it would be.
Sure, because if they were so and they are clannish. I mean, in the sense that they run in small little pods, like little family units, and they seem to keep to a single family most of the time, and yet they do have rendezvous. And I inserted myself accidentally into one of their rendezvous one evening, and it really irritated them.
Oh
yes. We had gone down, Scott Church and I had gone into a place in a valley, and it was around 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I love to go places where no one knows where I am. And went trotting down in there, and I heard a call. It was a bird call late at night, so I answered it, and I got a response from the opposite ridge. So I merrily called along. And they called back, and they started coming closer. And the closer they came, and then all of a sudden, there was this dead silence again. I mean, it's like running into a brick wall. And when I tell you that, I swear, even the insects stopped. And Scott and I stopped in our tracks, and all of a sudden, this thing cut loose on us with this scream, with this gibberish, and it sounds gibberish because I don't understand it. Certainly not gibberish to them, but they really were insulted and angry, and they left. And it took me a while to realize what I had done. I had come in on a movement route, had heard their call, and had responded, and apparently I imitated it well enough that I fooled them. They were looking for another family coming, and they were merrily coming down to say hello to Joe and Mary that just came in from the next valley, and they were really ticked off. They were angry that I had fooled them, and I certainly didn't mean to, but I did.
Would they get angry enough to get physical, do you think?
In under certain circumstances. There was an area that we were investigating, and I told my team, I said, there's one hilltop over here. I do not want anyone going anywhere near. I had this sense, this feeling, that this is where they bed during the day. Mm-hmm. And it was well protected. If you and I were on patrol and we were behind enemy lines, it's exactly what we would choose. So I left them alone, because if I leave them rest, then they're more apt to come close to me during the night. And, of course, they move around during the day under normal circumstances. When we are around, that's when they move at night. In any case, it was the same circumstance. We finally penetrated that area one night, somewhat accidentally, but we did do it. And on the way out, we had rocks whistling past us. And when I tell you the concussion of a large rock going past your head, and you know they're expert enough, if they wanted to hit you, they would. They'd take your head off. But they didn't. They were just telling me, you got too close, bud, back off. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they have a sense of fair play, too. And and even when my daughter was quite small, I took her into the Everglades. She's been in the mountains. She's been in the desert. We've had all sorts of encounters with the Bigfoot. They never, ever bothered us.
So you wouldn't be afraid to leave your daughter with a Bigfoot?
No, not at all. I think she'd be perfectly protected. In fact, I would worry about the Bigfoot.
Oh, really?
He's a tough one. But I had mentioned earlier that about the skull that had been reported found.
Yes, a skull.
Outside of Woodland, Washington. And they sent first the farmer had sent the jaw structure up to a university in Canada, and then they had come back later and asked for the entire everything, and they take the rest of the remains up there. And this jaw structure you could fit over your face, and they promptly lost it.
Oh, they lost it.
Oh, yeah, they lost it. And the University of Miami is guilty of the same thing. There was a femur down there that was huge, just absolutely long, and it was hanging in a curio shop, and one of the anthropologists took it in, and it disappeared. And outside of a little town called Ashtabula, Ohio, there had been a graveyard found up there when they first started clearing the land for the city, and they discovered these bodies that were in excess of between 6 and 7 feet tall. And, you know, our ancestors were not that tall. If you look at go to the museum and take a look at the riding habit of George Custer, you know, he was about 5'3".
Yeah, it's true. We have grown taller and taller as time has gone on. Genetically, we're getting taller.
But here's this ancient graveyard, and now you go to Ashtabula and try to find that. That was cleared out, and those bones are gone. So, you know, as I've said so many times, we have this common prayer, please God, Allah, Buddha, whoever, please let me get through this day without a single new thought. You know, and this is unfortunately true.
You've got a couple of CDs out, isn't that right?
Yes, I do. In fact, I sent them to you. I hope you received them.
What are they? Explain to everybody what they are.
The new CDs. I had made the Bigfoot: The Ultimate Adventure, which is an audio cassette, and it is true an adventure. It takes you into the woods and teaches you my method of coming in contact. But you only have so much time on a 90-minute cassette. I was bombarded. So finally I came up with the Bigfoot Pocket Field Manual. It covers 2 CDs, and these CDs give you absolute 100% everything you will ever need from the beginning. You don't know anything about Bigfoot to actually putting yourself in a position. They're 2 CDs long, and they're available now. They're just came off. They're literally hot off the press.
Okay.
Yeah, and the first 100 of them, as a matter of fact, they asked me to autograph each one of them.
Really?
Yes, and they're in production now, and they can be had if they go to artistfirst.com. They are our fulfillment agent. Artistfirst.com if they are on the web. If they are on the telephone, it's 1-888-295-ARTS, A-R-T-S.
Okay, that's 888, which is a toll-free number, 295-ARTS, A-R-T-S.
A-R-T-S.
Okay, well, how much?
Those are, boy, you would ask me that. I believe they're $25 for the set. Boy, I'm not in on the marketing, and I was just...
No, that's all right. You did them. All right. So these CDs, if you studied them, if you followed the advice given on the CDs, what are your odds of meeting a Bigfoot?
If they are in your area, your odds are extremely high. Extremely high. In fact, I hope those policemen, I wish that policeman, and I wish the Southern Bigfoot organization would get a copy of these things, because this is a culmination of 30 years of experience. I have done it. I've been there, and this is how, and it starts from ground zero.
How long?
Where to start your own research.
How long did it take you to produce these?
What, the CDs?
Yeah.
You mean, I don't understand.
Well, to produce them, to put it all together. How big a project was it?
Oh, well, for me to write it, it took 29 years to learn it, and 1 year to actually file it down into a viable script. And then I had to sit down and record it. So I recorded every single bit of it. And, oh, God, you're talking about actually about a year and a half to get the recordings the way they are right now.
Boy, that's a big project.
Yes, it was. Well, the Ultimate Adventure, which is its companion, I met the recording engineer to that when I was on my way to Moscow, Russia, and I met him in Frankfurt, and I heard these people whispering behind me, "That's the Bigfoot guy." And I thought, oh, Lord love a duck, I can't even go to Russia, you know. And he was a supreme engineer. He'd worked with Rod Stewart and Cher and the Jacksons and all this stuff. And he told me, he said, when we get back, if you want to do something, I will do it. Well, he did. He came to my home, built a recording studio, and spent 9 months. And nothing on that recording is canned. And the only thing is, he didn't have a sense of humor, Art. He would not let me sing.
He wouldn't let you sing?
He wouldn't let me sing.
All right. Well, that'll add to the attraction of the buy, I guess. I don't sing either, Robert. I just don't do that. The number again, folks, for the CDs, if you really want to meet Bigfoot, here you go. This is the way. It's 1-888-295-ARTS, A-R-T-S, or the website is artistfirst.com, artistfirst.com.
And if they want to visit me, it's trueseekers.org.
All right. We'll be right back.
To To reach Art Bell in the Kingdom of Nye, from west of the Rockies, dial 1-800-618-8255. East of the Rockies, 1-800-825-5033. First-time callers may reach Art at 1-775-727-1222. Or use the wildcard line at 1-775-727-1295. To reach Art on the toll-free international line, call your AT&T operator and have them dial 800-893-0903. This is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell on the Premier Radio Networks.
Yes, it is. Good morning, everybody. Robert Morgan is here, and we're talking about Bigfoot. Lines are loaded. We're about to go to the lines. If you have any questions, hopefully we'll have some answers. So, stay right where you are. Once again, here is Robert Morgan. Robert, hold on just 1 second. I need to pose for a picture here.
I'm right here.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I still haven't got it right. Well, I'll do it here shortly. All right. Robert, I'd like to take you to the telephones and let people ask you questions. They know that you know, and so obviously they have questions.
Sure, but I have a question for you.
Yeah, fire away.
Is it really true that we, for the Al-Qaeda, that we changed Ramadan to Ramabam? Is that true?
No, Robert. That's not. Well.
Okay. Well, you don't want to go there.
Yeah, I don't care to go there. Instead, I'll go to the phones. First time caller line. You're on the air with Robert Morgan. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Good evening.
Where are you, sir?
I'm from Columbia, Missouri. Listen to you on 1400 KFRU.
All right.
This takes place about 2 years ago. About three of my friends, we were up hunting around Cody, Wyoming. And me and my friends, we're more like traditionalists. We try to preserve the style of hunting back to the mountain man type, with old muzzleloaders.
For you.
And so we really have done a lot of research and researching in clothing and weapon use and all that. Well, we were up in Cody, Wyoming, at a friend's ranch up there doing mule deer hunting in the old traditional style. And we were up there, and we had shot a mule deer. We've been up there about 2 weeks and finally shot a mule deer. We're up there with pack horses, and we're cutting this mule deer up, put on pack horses. And all of a sudden, there's what I thought at the time was this animal coming up. And it was kind of growling and not really snarling, but kind of baring its teeth. I told my friends, I said, let's go with what we got on the horses and leave the rest. And so we went back to our base camp. Later that night, I heard rustling in the leaves. I told my friends, I said, well, bears are trying to get to the meat. Let's reposition it. And we do. And didn't really notice anything. And got up the next morning, I asked my friends, I said, did you notice something odd about that animal yesterday? They just kind of said, yeah, really hadn't seen anything like that, but we're not really from this country, so I figured it's something just native to this country. I said, yeah, me too. So we go out and go scouting for more mule deer, and I come back, me and a friend of mine come back early, and I heard some rustling in the camp, and I said, them bears have gotten into the meat again, so let's sneak up real quiet and see if we can catch it and scare it off. So we sneak up to it, and there's this looks like a guy in a, I don't know, have you ever seen the old pictures of the Indians or the mountain men with big buffalo capes around them?
Oh, yes.
It kind of looked like that, but it was not quite, the hair was long. We're like, what in the world is this? And we sat there and watched it, and this, I now know that it was Bigfoot, but at the time it didn't register, and we're watching it, look at our packs and stuff like that. And our packs are the old basket-style packs, not the metal frame. Wood and basket weave. Let me tell you, they're a killer on the shoulders. But he's just real intrigued, or Ed, I don't know if it was a he or she, is just real intrigued with what we got. Well, we finally said, well, I don't like this, let's just kind of just real nonchalantly walk up and kind of see if we can't spook it away. And so we start walking like normal, and sure enough, it kind of just, it runs away and a little spooked. Well, later that day, we was eating lunch, and I happened to notice that the same things across this creek that we're camped at. I said, boys, look at that. And we sat there and watched it, and it watched us for probably, I don't know, it seemed forever, but it was probably more like 30 minutes. And I said, I wonder what that is. So it acts too much human-like to be animal. And so we started pondering and talking about it, and one guy said, well, you know what, I bet you that's Bigfoot. We just kind of laughed about it. And it was the oddest thing. And the last day, we were packing up our meat, and this thing is across the creek again, watching us pack up. So I said, I wonder if that's someone that's out here, that's just been left out here, hermit type. So I laid a hind quarter of one of the deer out in the center of the camp, and I said, let's go. We acted like we was going. I said, now let's double back and see. And the Bigfoot had come across the creek and was eating on a little bit on the legged deer. Then it took it and walked back up across the creek and down over the ridge. It was about the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Well, what you performed was something very similar to what the Native Americans would have done and are continuing to do, and that is to share what they have. And had you stuck around there after you gave him that, more than likely, within a day or two, you'd find some gifts.
Really?
That would have appeared. And I'm not talking about something from Sears or Roebuck,
Yeah.
But you would have found something that would have been important, that he thought would be important to you, even if it would have been new sticks or reeds to repair your packs or something along those lines.
Now, we talked about this after we got back, and we did a little bit of research, and it was like, I bet you that was Bigfoot that we saw.
Well, I have to compliment you, the fact that you had weapons, but you didn't even consider shooting it. And
we're talking muzzleloader type weapons, and I mean,
yeah.
we was like, we're more of the type that only shoot what you're going to eat, and that's it.
Boy, good for you.
And
I'm glad to hear.
I agree. Good for him, and and he's about the third tonight that said that like it never even occurred to them to shoot it. And do a lot of people who get near Bigfoot come back with that same story, that it just never occurred to them to shoot?
Art, more and more are coming to that, because, and I want to say that some of my colleagues that are like myself are getting through to people, and I hope we are. And more people are reacting to the Bigfoot as well. It's not bothering me. And of course they're cautious, just like the police officers. They had their weapons in case. But they didn't do, unfortunately, what Bugs did, the fellow that we had talked about before. And,
everybody wants to know about Bugs, and of course it ended, at least for now, when Bugs' wife said, "Oh, no, you don't." And we have not taken it any further than that. I tell you, though, on reflection, I absolutely believe Bugs. I don't know about you. You listen to the story, and what do you think?
I am ready to go to Texas. I was very surprised, and on top of that, I was extremely impressed and pleased. Even scientists had contacted me offering their services, especially out of UCLA. I had people from the state's attorney's office contact me. I had in Texas police officers, detectives, people wanting to help. That was quite an event, and I hope that Bugs is listening, and I hope his wife lets him out of the closet.
Well, he knows that I stand ready at a moment's notice to take him up on his offer and to pass it on to you and to take a trip to Texas. He knows that's true, so we await that call, Bugs. Listen, with respect to your CDs, is it true that all the profits are going directly to an organization to help further research?
Oh, absolutely. The profits go to the American Anthropological Research Foundation.
Well, how in God's name are you making a living?
I beg your pardon?
How are you making a living?
Oh, hijacking cars, things like this. I've always been fairly lucky that way. I go out and I make my money, and then I go back and spend it. That's what it's all about. And if I die with more than $26 in my checking account, I'm going to be very angry.
You know, that's it's kind of the way I think about money too. All right. Wild card line, you're on the air with Robert Morgan. Hello.
Hello?
Hi there.
Hello. Oh, my goodness gracious. Can I say something real quick to you, Art?
Yes?
Before I make my point here. I am so grateful that you're here. I missed you so much. Me and my wife, my wife and I, we cried heavily when you were gone.
Well, I'm grateful to be here too, sir. Thank you so much.
And I'm so glad that you did what you did for Rush. We all prayed, and you know, it was a great thing, and I'm so glad we cried when you were back.
Well, I wish I could tell you all I know about Rush, but I can't right now.
I know, I understand.
Things will be apparent in time. All right, anyway.
Exactly, okay. So, hey, Robert, I have a good friend that he's called up on the Art Bell show a number of times under several assumed names because he's a very paranoid sort, just like most of us. And anyway, so he says that he knows in the Shasta area, of course, all the the stuff that goes on in Shasta and the Shasta Mountains, that's a whole different program. But
yeah, it's kind of like tomorrow night's program. You're going to want to hear that, sir. But anyway, your point is?
Okay, well, he says that he knows some Sasquatch, a whole Sasquatch family in the area, and that he believes that they are interdimensional. Now, that's my big, that's my thing. I want to ask, do you have any idea if they can possibly be, maybe they have some sort of, something that we are lacking now that we have just, it's faded out in the human.
Okay, I think we really already answered this when I asked the question about the paranormal, but you're welcome to enlarge. What I think is true, Robert, is that we assign in our minds when something is as elusive as this. We automatically, in our minds, we assign it to the paranormal category. It's a natural human thing to do.
Yes, and it kind of shows our weakness, and at the same time, a kind of yearning for something beyond what we can see, touch, smell, taste, etc. It kind of is akin when I ask people. They'll tell me they're afraid of. I'd be afraid if I saw a ghost. And I said, my answer is, look at me. Look at me right now. Are you afraid of me? Well, of course not. Well, if I die tomorrow and I come the next day to see you, why would you be afraid? And it's all it is the driver is outside the car, and there's no difference. But it's the same thing with the Bigfoot. We try to, anything that we can't really grasp quickly, we like to think, and I think subconsciously wish that there is another dimension. There has to be something more than what...
Oh, well, I think there probably is, as we mentioned earlier. Most of the theoretical physicists who are right on top right now believe there may be 11 or more. And so I believe that. But in this case, you're just saying you think these creatures are as real as we are.
Yes. And I think it's our own limitations that are the problem.
Well, how are they bright enough? Well, of course, they are seen.
They've been watching us for centuries, so they know what we're going to react to. I'll tell you how I can tell you that they, for sure, how they hand down things for probably hundreds, if not thousands of years. I recorded an owl call in the state of Washington in the presence of George Harrison, he's the former managing editor for National Wildlife Magazine. We couldn't, for the life of us, figure out what this was. I knew, and we all sensed, it was something other than an owl, because there were two of them, and under the circumstances, they were acting strangely. And we had those same feelings. Something was around. We finally identified it. It was the hoots of the Arctic owl, the snowy owls from the Arctic. The only time they hoot is when they're breeding, and they only breed in the Arctic Circle. Now, how did the Bigfoot learn that? Was it possible that
it had to be there, right?
It had to have perhaps came over the land bridge, heard it, picked it up, used it, and have passed it down from generation for how many generations?
Wow.
That knocked me back about 20 paces when I heard that.
Yep, me too. Wow, that's incredible. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Robert Morgan. Hello.
Mr. Morgan.
Yes, sir.
Since you were on the last time, sir, I have tried very hard to locate a story that I read about somewhere between 50 and 55 of a group of people who brought maybe 300 or 400 Maasai warriors from Africa over to South America. They were young children at the time, and they were going to be used to pick fruit, whatnot, back in those days. And that after about a year or so, they found out that they could not communicate with each other verbally and whatnot, and that it wasn't working out. So they took the majority of them up to the rainforest and left them there. And I was wondering, had you heard any of this story?
No, I have not.
Well, you know, after you were on the last time and you were telling about these things, that popped into my mind, and I started thinking about that, how they could have come up from South America through Mexico into the Southwest.
Well, the Maasai, these are human beings. We have descendants of the Maasai playing basketball.
Oh, I know.
So these are actual human beings that you would be able to identify in a New York second. I will say there is in South America, in Venezuela, and especially in Ecuador, they call it Mono Grande, otherwise the big monkey.
Yes.
And a friend of mine, Count Pino Turola, he was a exploratory archaeologist who was looking for the lost gold of Pizarro. He was looking for gold, and he saw them on two separate occasions. In fact, there's a feeling among the Native Americans, and it seems to go even into South America, that if you really do something bad toward the Bigfoot, you have what they call bad luck. And whether you bring it about yourself or is there something mystical, I don't know.
You know, I've got a Native American on tomorrow night, so I will ask him about exactly that. Can you hold tight here at the bottom of the hour?
You bet.
All right.
Want to take a ride? Call Art Bell from west of the Rockies at 1-800-618-8255. East of the Rockies at 1-800-825-5033. First-time callers may reach Art at area code 775-727-1222 or call the wildcard line at 775-727-1295. To talk with Art on the toll-free international line, call your AT&T operator and have them dial 800-893-0903. This is Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell.
I'm so hooked on this record and a few others that, I don't know, they just affect me mightily. Anyway, listen, Robert Morgan is here. We're talking about Bigfoot and taking your calls. Hey, guess what? I got a photo up. I said I was going to try and get the DT200V up, and I do have that photo up on my webcam right now. To get to my webcam, and you can see my cool new T-shirt at the same time. We've got these T-shirts. Oh, I love them. Go to artbell.com, go to program, and then over to Art Bell Studio Cam, and you'll see a picture of this cool little radio. It really is such a slick radio. Promised it, and there it is, finally. So you can legibly see it. Robert Morgan, back in a moment. All right, back now to Robert Morgan. You're back on the air, Robert.
Wonderful.
Hey, I hear you're doing some sort of internet radio program yourself. Is that true?
Yes. In fact, I was going to call you and ask you to be a guest.
Yeah, like I'm not on the radio enough, huh?
Why, when you're not doing anything else. Yes, as a matter of fact, the artistfirst.com people contacted me, and it was after we did the Bug Show, because when I tell you I had over nearly 386 emails.
Uh-huh.
I was flooded. And, of course, Artist First just loved it. So they invited me to do a test balloon.
Right.
And so far, for whatever reason, each Tuesday night, and it's between 9 and 10 Eastern Time.
Mm-hmm.
I have had a marvelous audience. I'm not as charming as you are, nor am I as good-looking, but I try hard.
I'm not good-looking. That's why I don't go on television. So you do a show, I take it, about Bigfoot.
Yeah, well, more than that. We do the artistfirst.com is how you can get onto it. But we're the American Anthropological Research Foundation, of which I'm president. We're involved in a lot of things. Institute for Neuroscience Awareness is one, which has to do with EEG neurofeedback for brain trauma, curing brain trauma problems, and circumventing it. We also have the Institute for Children with Challenges.
So you know something about these things?
By osmosis, yes, I do.
Well, okay, then. I've got a really good question for you. I had a gal on the air the other night whose name was Pam. And Pam has been featured on 48 Hours and elsewhere. And she had an aneurysm in her brain. You didn't happen to hear that, did you?
No, I did not.
She had an aneurysm in her brain, Robert. And in order to clip this aneurysm without killing her, the only thing they could do was to lower her body temperature way down, and her heart stopped. They pumped all the blood out of her body, every last bit of the blood out of her body, and her brain waves stopped for an hour.
All right.
Robert, for an hour. She was dead. D-E-A-D, dead.
Right.
She told us what happened while she was dead. But at any rate, they pumped the blood back into her body. Her heart was kick-started with the paddles, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
And after an hour, Robert, she came back. Now, if you know anything about neurological studies, maybe you'd like to comment for me on the following question. During that hour, where was she?
Well, that's like you and I. Okay, I'm going to pick you up, and we're going to go down and have a hamburger. We park our car, and we get out. All right? Normally, you leave the engine running. Because the soul, certainly, I am much prettier than this body will let you know. So I look at, being a Buddhist, I look at ourselves as these bodies are nothing more or less than cars that we're driving. That's all. It's the soul that's important, not the body.
Okay.
Now, I must comment on that treatment. Do you know who invented that treatment?
Actually, she had the operation from one of the pioneers in Arizona. I'm sorry, I can't recall his name. I'm going to have him on the air. He wants to come on the air.
Well, it was pioneered by the Russians.
Okay.
The Russians were the first people that lowered our body temperatures so far down. I wish that they had done this with my brother. My brother was the chief of police in Campbell, California, had an aneurysm at age 48. And he was strapped to a board for 7 years, couldn't speak, couldn't move, nothing. And yet he was totally, the body was totally aware. He had all his feelings. And he wrote a book, Messages to My Children, by blinking his eyes.
Oh, my God.
So I am very grateful each day that I walk. I have no complaints, zero.
But okay, so you are a believer in the fact that we are invested with souls.
Oh, yes.
But
yes.
It still didn't answer my question, did it?
Where did she go?
Yeah, for that hour, where was she?
Well, she had obviously, I would assume that her body, that her soul had stepped out and perhaps even watched the operation.
You are correct. She described the operation. In fact, there's the other thing that just, we're so far off Bigfoot now, but here's the other thing that just is impossible. She described all the procedures that went on during the linear hour of time that they operated on her, Robert.
That doesn't surprise me, Art. Have you not been able to astrally project?
But yes, I have, but zero neurological function. I mean zero, no brain waves.
Well, the brain is not the soul, is it?
Yeah, that's apparently what would seem to
Bingo.
be true. All right. Well, listen. A lot of people. We got off track here. I just couldn't help it when you said that. That was part of your research.
Oh, we're into all sorts of things. If I can't get my toe into everything that's going on, as long as it has one thing, and that's a positive thing. Someday, I would like you to talk with a young lady by the name of Colleen Smith, whose son Judah was considered an idiot with the IQ of 30, and he was totally flaccid. He was a destroyed portion of his brain was destroyed during vacuum extraction. You should speak with the little boy. He now speaks French, German. He is obviously English. He may step. He may actually be able to move and stand. Not too distant future. All because of EEG neurofeedback. But that's another subject. And I know that it's Bigfoot.
Boy, yeah, that's right.
I'm up to my ears in everything, every waking moment, and when I dream at night, there's so much to do. There's so much to learn.
All right, and so many calls. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Robert Morgan. Hello.
Hello, Art. How you doing?
I'm okay, sir.
Incidentally, that bumper music was great at the bottom of the hour. I just went to Graceland over Thanksgiving, and it was a great trip.
Good for you.
Yeah. I had a question for Robert. I'm a physical anthropology student here at the University of Oklahoma, and I just got done with a Yeti research paper.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the questions I had upon doing the research was that I am assuming that, I guess there's a lot of geographical variations that a lot of researchers in this field kind of acknowledge, like Yeti, Sasquatch, and the South American, I guess, counterpart to that is the Kurapira, I think, or something like that.
Well, you have isolated gene pools that would modify themselves within their environment. That's right.
Right. I was just kind of wondering, are these variations considered subspecies, or are they derivations of the same line that are considered one species entirely?
Well, first of all, it wouldn't be considered by anyone because science hasn't really accepted it yet officially.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
Unofficially, between you and me.
Okay.
Yes, because for instance, I noticed the difference in the body type in South Florida, in the Florida Everglades. They're tall, very slender, very almost emaciated in comparison to the giants that you find of the massive chest and all of this. And the rationale behind that, I'm a slow learner. Believe me, it takes a long time for things to sink in. But I discovered, the key deer that they have in Florida are tiny because they don't need that massive body around them to keep the intestines warm. And so what happens here is things have adapted. So the Bigfoot sightings in Florida would be distinctly different. Isolated gene pools also would be multiplied according, I'm sure you're familiar with Mendelian genetics, because you'd have a fallout when you have certain groups that have been isolated in certain areas for X period of time. The two things are going to affect them. First of all, their environment, and second of all, the gene pool from which they can draw. Am I right?
Right, that's exactly right. I was just there seemed to be so much literature on the subject, and based off that, I had understood that there was just a lot of groupings into different categorical kind of divisions based off the environment and geography. Just even around the Himalayas, there were several subdivisions of the Yeti phenomena there alone, and I just found it pretty fascinating that there was so many of these kind of regional things that were all lopped up together based off just the literature that was involved.
Well, the major differentiation that I've been able to, the primary thing that I've been able to note in the Himalayas, for instance, and I'm trying so hard to put things together. I want to go to Mongolia. There's an isolated area there that I think I'm going to try my methodology, my protocol for contacting them passively, and I might get my beam knocked off over there. Maybe we'll find out. But the major differentiation is in the color. The color of the skin, or not of the skin, but of the hair, among the youth in America, in North America, I'm speaking, is reddish color, and then they turn black as they become an adult, and then of course become grizzled gray. I don't find that. I don't find any variations at all, any reports at all among the Yeti and the Himalayas. Now I've been to Georgia, the Republic of Georgia, and out of Tbilisi up in the Caucasus Mountains. Mm-hmm. And Zena, the female there, was pure black and things like this. And they seem to be more related to us than they did to the Himalayas.
That's amazing.
So you'll have some fun with that.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right, caller, thank you. And I've got a really, really interesting email here, Robert. It says, "Hi. In order for a scientific name to be valid, a type name-bearing specimen is needed. However, you don't need to shoot one. The best approach is to look for fossils in caves, especially ones that are natural traps. If Bigfoot exists, there are fossils gathering dust in museums. Paleontologists, including me, use search images. If you don't know what you're looking at, you don't recognize it. The way past this is to appeal to grad students. Post a reward for confirmed Bigfoot fossils. Offer a year's supply of beer, and the fossils will be found in a month. That's from a paleontologist.
Well, I stand up, salute that gentleman or lady, whoever it may be.
I had a feeling you might agree.
Thank God for a scientist like this. I don't know who they are, but I wish you well with all my heart, and if I can gather that much beer, I will let you know.
A natural trap. That's kind of would be an interesting place to search for artifacts, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would, except for a problem here. You're dealing with a human-like species. Now, how many Neanderthals, Cro-Magnon, etc., have we found in the tar pits or places like this? We have found very few. And I don't know of any. Now, there may be some, but I don't know of any.
Well, he's suggesting...
The idea is that if you fell in, we wouldn't hunt alone. We would be out someplace. And, Art, if you fell into one of those traps, I'm going to get you out. Okay? And we'll throw you a rope. I will find a way. I'll break a tree off and send it down. So we're an elephant. Of course, they will try to get their people out, but they can't do it because of their massive weight. They're going to go down. So you're going to find mastodon. You're going to find things like this. You're going to find deer, because deer don't help one another. If one gets in trouble, the rest run away and say, "Thank God it's not me."
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with a hominid, I'm not sure. How many monkeys have we found?
It's a very good point. No, excellent point. Well said. East of the Rockies, you're on there with Robert Morgan. Hi.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes. I'm calling from New Franklin, Missouri.
Yes, sir.
And I was wondering if Robert knew anything about a town called Louisiana, Missouri.
I have heard of it, yes.
About 25 years ago, there was a sighting in Louisiana, Missouri. And I was one of the participants there, but I never seen anything. I smelt something that smelt like rotting flesh, but we never seen anything.
Uh-huh.
Is that Robert, what a Bigfoot smells like? Rotting flesh?
Well, and okay, now I'm going to have to gross some of your people out.
That's all right. It's real late. Go ahead and gross them out.
All right. Here's a theory that I have that I think is pretty accurate. Let's go back to Native Americana. If we wanted to hunt buffalo, we would dress like a buffalo, walk hunched over like a buffalo, and if you found fresh buffalo scat, if you're a good hunter and you have a strong stomach, you're going to roll in it. It's exactly how you're going to get close. I had so many reports that were so oddball, Art, I just didn't accept it. I couldn't believe it.
Is that one of the ways that you get close to a Bigfoot? I mean, have you done this? Have you gone down and rolled in poop?
No, it's the opposite. What has happened is that I had report after report after report of Bigfoot rolling where we dumped or pumped out our septic tanks.
Oh, man.
And I absolutely rejected it. I thought this was the most ludicrous, but I kept getting them. And suddenly it dawned on me, and thank God it was for Nino Cochise, my adopted father. He said, "Look, dummy," I think that was his favorite name for me. "Hey, dummy." He said, "Look, they must think that's what we smell like, and they're trying to, because lots of times people smell this putrid thing next to your house, that they actually find human feces, rub themselves in it in order to think that's the way we smell." And the other night, when I was in Walmart, I was in those long lines. No, never mind.
You thought you detected a Bigfoot in lines.
I could tell where I got that idea. But, when you think of it logically, coldly, not emotionally, you think of it coldly, this would make sense from their viewpoint.
It would, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course it would.
The Vietnamese, when they were hunting us, They could tell we were in the area by our smell. They could smell an American.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so why not? So if I were shot down behind their lines, I just might. You know, if I just might. I'm going to live.
Listen, our program is coming to an end. It's been another spectacular one with you, as always. Is there a way to reach you by email if somebody would like to contact you with something urgent?
Yes, RWM with the numeric 4, Big Sky, at AOL.com.
All right, give it again. They never get it the first time.
RWM with the numeric 4, Big Sky, at AOL.com, or at our website, trueseekers.org. That's an even faster way, trueseekers.org.
All right. You got it in. Robert, bless you, my friend, and good night.
Anytime.
Take care, and you can be sure there will be another time. And I leave you with just a bit more. Good morning, everybody. That creature is out there, you know. I'm Art Bell from the high desert. Ta-ta.
Some velvet morning when I'm straight, I'm gonna open up your gate and maybe tell you about Phaedra and how she gave me life and how she made it in some velvet morning when I'm straight.
Flowers growing on a hill, dragonflies and daffodils, learn from us very much. Look at us, but do not touch. Phaedra is my name.
Some velvet morning when I'm straight, I'm gonna open up your gate and maybe tell you about Phaedra and how she gave me life and how she made it in some velvet morning when I'm straight.
Flowers are the things we know.
Haunting, isn't it? Good night.
Are the things we grow.